Well, we did it with WrestleMania, we did it with SummerSlam, and technically, we did this one already, but, you know, copyright. Yeah, rough times, rough times. But you know what? Who says we can't run it back? Now, even though Survivor Series is the second longest running pay-per-view they have, I think we can all agree that WWE hasn't always done the best job in making it feel even close to as important as the other big four pay-per-views. And it definitely showed as I went through some of these pay-per-views because, whew, there were some unbearable ones in there. But there's still a lot of heaters from this show's history, and well, lucky for y'all, I'm here to talk about the very best of the best. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Mo if you don't already know, and this is the best match of every Survivor Series. Let's do this damn thing. You know, when I watch Golden Age WWF, I'm not going into it expecting in-ring classics, and to be fair, there were none on the show. But when I try to watch it without a modern lens, it's for sure a lot more enjoyable, especially with how lit these crowds almost always were. In terms of best match on the show, there was a colossal 10-on-10 elimination tag match here, which was between Team Strikeforce versus Team Heart Foundation. And yes, with 20 wrestlers out there, the match inevitably was chaotic, but definitely some fun to be had watching this. It was a really long match that did drag in some parts, but to be fair, it was only a 4-match card, so they had to fill for time somewhere. So I'll cut them some slack. If there's one storyline from before my time that I enjoy going back to watch, it's the build to the Mega Powers exploding. So the best match here was the main event between a team led by Hogan and Savage and a team led by the Twin Towers. And the match itself is pretty solid. And yes, the result of Hogan and Savage as the final two is nowhere near surprising, but the crowd was hot for literally everything here. But what I really liked about this was the closing shot of the match. So Savage is selling his beatdown with Miss Elizabeth checking on him, and then you got Hogan, once again, doing way too much with Savage's girl, picking her up and parading around, and then you got Savage noticing and giving Hogan a weirded out look, continuing to build to that clash at WrestleMania 5, and all I can say is, Savage is a way better man than me, because I would not have waited another 3 months to attack Hogan. You can trust me on that. But man, this was the original version of wrestling cinema, no doubt. Well, no streak can last forever, because compared to the last 2 years, this show was just very not worst show ever levels or anything like that, but outside of the Ultimate Warrior looking dominant in the main event 4-on-4 elimination tag match, there wasn't much here that you would want to revisit. I will say though, it was kind of cool to see how they were building Warrior up before they eventually got to the Ultimate Challenge at WrestleMania 6, because he was super over here. Granted, part of it was probably because he was beating up on Bobby Heenan, who was freaking hilarious here by the way. But yeah, nothing too crazy as an overall match, but enjoyable enough to make this list. I swear, if this show didn't have the debut of arguably the greatest character in pro wrestling history, and also there was a zombie that showed up for some reason, this could have been the most forgettable Big Four pay-per-view of all time. So yeah, the $1 Million Team versus the Dream Team gets the nod here. Now, outside of Undertaker's debut, it's not really anything special, but the last few minutes of the match between Bret Hart and Ted DiBiase was, unsurprisingly, considering the guys involved, pretty damn good to be fair. So at least there's that as well. Also, just real quick, I can only imagine an IWC reaction to the egg hatch. Oh man. Probably would have broke Twitter now that I think about it. Oh my goodness. This show was so rough to get through. And it doesn't help that the whole thing was just a big advertisement for a whole other pay-per-view that was happening the next week, which is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. The show peaked in its opener, and even that ain't saying much. It's a 4-on-4 match that ends with everybody getting DQ'd for brawling except Ric Flair, who had been knocked out earlier on. I mean, I wish I had more to say. I really do. Oh, I know what to say. Don't waste your time. This show is an easy skip. Go do something fun. Like maybe watching this next match I'm going to talk about. You know, there's certain matches that get lost in time and don't get the full respect that they deserve, and Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart from this show is definitely one of those matches. And it was cool to see what Shawn was actually capable of before he was truly the main eventer he would go on to be a few years later, back when the IC title was actually a stepping stone to the world title. And look, it's a Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels match. Of course, we got some great in-ring action. That ain't exactly breaking news. But I gotta say this, and I know the Iron Man match is more iconic, and we all know what happens in '97. But I will die on the hill that this is the best match Bret and Shawn ever had against each other. Don't believe me? Go watch it. It's that damn good. fuck this show. Look, I understand. 1993 was a transition year for the WWF. You know, Hogan left, the steroid trial was becoming a bigger and bigger threat. But nah, man, this was a full-on masterclass. It was so bad, in fact, I want to be petty and say there wasn't a best match for this show. But I guess I'll give it to the opener of Team Razor Ramon versus Team IRS. But even that was just okay. And somehow, some way, they got even worse the next year. You know how bad a show has to be for the best match on that card to be a slow-ass match between Bret Hart and Bob Backlund that drags for 85% of it? And the worst part of it was the fact that Bob Backlund actually beat Bret. Granted, how they did it was entertaining as hell. Owen pretending like he actually gave a damn about Bret's well-being, pleading with their mom to throw in the towel. But man, speaking of Owen, if this whole time you were gonna take the belt off Bret to transition it to Diesel, you couldn't give Owen just one run, gang, and then have him be the one to drop it to Diesel? No disrespect to Bob Backlund, an absolute legend, but it's 1994, not 1978. And my boy Owen deserved a run with the world title, I'm just saying. Yo, why is this show actually good? 1995 is always looked at as arguably the worst year WWE has ever had creatively, so for them to deliver like this was a very pleasant surprise. And it capped off with an incredible WWF title main event. Bret vs. Diesel was a very well done David vs. Goliath type of match. Bret being the intelligent, smaller babyface, trying to chop Diesel down. And Kevin Nash gets a lot of flack for his in-ring work, but he truly did his thing in this one. And fun fact, this match actually has the first ever announced table spot in WWE history, so that's also cool to see. Definitely a match I recommend you check out if you haven't seen it before. Wow. An even better Survivor Series? And we're still in the new generation era? Yeah, I must be dreaming. But nah, for real, this is definitely an all-timer of a Survivor Series. And it just so happens to feature what is, in some people's opinion, the best match in Survivor Series history. Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. This match doesn't get nearly as much love as their WrestleMania 13 classic, but I'm gonna be honest, from purely an in-ring standpoint, I think this is just as good, if not just slightly worse than their match at Mania 13. And one really cool thing about this match is how the crowd started to really show their support for Austin. They haven't exactly turned on Bret yet, but the wheels are definitely starting to turn for Austin's popularity for sure. Look, we all know what happens in the finish of Bret versus Shawn, and honestly, I don't care to talk about who screwed who because that's been done to death by everybody and their mama. Plus, one thing the controversy definitely did was take away from what was honestly a fantastic match. The intensity was off the charts from the jump, some of that probably being as real as it gets. They were brawling all around the arena, and once they got in the ring, I mean, again, it's Bret and Shawn, so of course they were cooking before everything went down. By the way, Bret was in the right, argue with the wall. Let me tell y'all something. If you watch this show looking for in-ring classics, you will be greatly disappointed because, trust me, there's none. But if you're somebody that appreciates cinema, this show is for you. The story thread of the Deadly Games tournament and The Rock eventually joining the corporation was masterfully done. And for the sake of this video, I'll give the nod to the finals between The Rock and Mankind. One, because it was the only match to actually get some decent time, but also because it was the cherry on top on this masterpiece. Real talk, if you're gonna watch anything from this show, just go ahead, put some time aside and watch the whole thing. It's genuinely worth it. You know, it kind of sucks that we never actually got the triple threat between Rock, Austin, and Triple H, the two top faces of the Attitude Era, and the top heel outside of Vince during that time. But nah, instead we get false advertising and attempted vehicular homicide. Anyways, the triple threat we actually got with Big Show taking Austin's place wasn't terrible. And sure, Big Show winning was kind of weird and ended up meaning nothing because he would just drop the belt right back to Triple H. But the match itself was alright for what it was. But it really should have just been Rock versus Triple H though. New millennium, same old Attitude Era. The year before, we saw attempted vehicular homicide, and this year we see attempted homicide by forklift. Yeah, that checks out. And honestly, the match before it, Triple H versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, was a really great brawl as it should have been. I mean, Triple H literally tried to end Austin's life in kayfabe. And sure, the no contest finish might be annoying for some people, but the moment of Triple H yelling holy shit as he's being dropped from 15 feet in the air in a car makes me die with laughter every time I see it. So personally, I am very much satisfied. I need to feel you. Look, if you just watch this show for what it is, it might make you think a little bit different about the Invasion, because this show from top to bottom is fantastic. Capped off by one of the very best 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches of all time. Team WWF versus Team Alliance. Now, the Alliance side having 3 guys from the WWF, including Vince's son himself, is a little bit nuts and kind of the problem with the Invasion, but we'll save the Invasion slander for another day. As for the match though, a lot of great storytelling. Jericho and Rock having to fight from underneath after going down 4-2. Jericho being unable to put his ego or his beef with The Rock aside for the match, but a really fun watch, especially with, in my opinion, the best commentary duo of all time, calling the action for one last pay-per-view. There we go. The best Survivor Series of all time. I mean, this show was loaded with great stuff. The opening match was wild fun. Victoria and Trish killed it in their hardcore match. You had the entire SmackDown 6 in a triple threat tag team match. I mean, what more do I have to say about that? Scott Steiner's hilarious return.
Give me a fucking mic!
But of course, the best match of the night, the first ever Elimination Chamber match. Look, that promo package alone speaks for itself. And the match as a whole delivers on all ends. And hey, shout out to Triple H for working through this entire match despite having his throat crushed early on. And that final 2 between Triple H and Shawn Michaels was so well done, and the moment of Shawn winning the world title after coming out of retirement and getting that reaction never gets old. If only he wasn't wearing those damn pants though. A pretty fun show overall, and this was part 1 of Randy Orton becoming Mr. Survivor Series in the Team Austin versus Team Bischoff 5-on-5 match. But I can't lie, the MVP of not just this match, but the show as a whole was Shawn Michaels. Surprise, surprise. From the moment that Shawn was down 3-1 to the very end is one of my favorite performances of his entire career, and that is saying something. And I don't care if this comes off as glazed because he's the fucking best and I don't want to hear otherwise. This man is bleeding buckets, but he's got that fighting spirit to try and keep Steve Austin's job intact. His storytelling was just off the charts, and despite him being so beaten down, only HBK can make you believe the way he made us believe he can get the job done here. Now, of course, he doesn't because of Evolution shenanigans, but still. This was peak drama right here that I don't even think my words can truly do justice. It's really something you just have to sit there and watch for yourself. Now here's part 2 of Randy Orton being Mr. Survivor Series, this time as a babyface. And honestly, looking at Legend Killer Randy as a babyface never gets any less weird. And there really isn't too much to this match. Then again, there isn't too much to this show. And there isn't really too much to this match. But then again, there isn't really too much to this show. Heidenreich versus The Undertaker, anyone? Anyone? But there were some cool eliminations in the Team Orton versus Team Triple H match. And it did help Randy look strong for once in his feud with Triple H. Just for it all to mean nothing in the end. Oh man. At least folks only had to deal with the Reign of Terror for just a few more months. Now here's part 3 of Randy Orton being Mr. Survivor Series, but this time I can't even give a match of the night because as incredible as the Raw versus SmackDown 5-on-5 was, Triple H versus Ric Flair in that last man standing match was just a little bit better in my opinion. This shit was absolutely brutal, and even that is an understatement. You got Flair turning back the clock, putting on a 30-minute masterpiece, bleeding all over the place. Okay, maybe that isn't exactly turning back the clock for him. Ric Flair bleeding all over the place is pretty much every Ric Flair match, but you get my point. And this crazy old bastard just would not stay down, even after 3 pedigrees, so Triple H had to get the sledgehammer to finally take him out. It just goes to show you that even in his older age, when Ric Flair had the right opponent, he still had it in him to tell a great story like the GOAT he is. Now please stay retired, Rick. Please. This was an overall weak show, but there is definitely a moment that is still a gem to this day, when Shawn Michaels just easily eliminates Mike Knox from the Team DX versus Team Rated RKO match. And then he just goes to the corner and he's just like, who is that? Oh man, that will never not be funny as hell. And honestly, this will get the nod for me as best match of the night. It is kind of crazy how they went for the clean sweep of Team Rated RKO, considering Edge himself was literally WWE champion 2 months before this. But it was entertaining for what it was, and the crowd was really into it, so I'll give it the nod. This right here was my first real-time Survivor Series, so I'm always have some love for it. And as great as the Hell in a Cell match between Batista and Undertaker was, the story of Orton and Michaels does not get enough respect. So the stipulation of this match was that Shawn wasn't allowed to use the Sweet Chin music. So he was trying all kinds of different moves, but none of it would put Randy away. And then the finish where Shawn has the opportunity to hit Sweet Chin Music, but he realizes he can't do it, just for that to cost him, and Randy takes advantage of the hesitation to hit the RKO for the win. Very underrated match here for sure. I would say to check this one out, if you haven't. You know, I always hated the show as a kid for what they did to Jeff Hardy, and I hadn't watched it back in almost 2 decades. I always remember this being a very meh show, and watching it back definitely emphasized that for me. Even the best match with Cena and Jericho in the main event, while it was enjoyable, nothing more than what you would see in like a Raw main event. I guess having it be Cena's return match in his hometown where he wins the world title adds a bit of a heartwarming touch to it, but that's really about it. I can get through winter. 2009 wasn't the best year overall, you know, guest hosts and all that, but it does bring back a lot of memories as a young fan. But man, that WWE title triple threat was a lot of fun. John Cena's face when Shawn Michaels kicks Triple H dead in the face lives rent-free in my head. But even outside of that, this was a very solid way to close the night. Not the greatest triple threat match ever or anything like that, but when you got a hot crowd with 3 of the greatest of all time in here, man, 2010 as a fan is always such a blur for me, and this show is prime example as to why. And especially watching that main event back reminded me just how annoying the entire Nexus storyline was. Now, the match itself was okay, I guess, especially compared to the rest of the show. It just leaves a bad taste in your mouth knowing how they handled everything after. So the stipulation was if Barrett loses, Cena's fired, and well, Barrett lost because of Cena. So then they end the show with this entire segment of Cena saying goodbye to everyone, just for him to come out the next night, do this whole speech about how he's going away, just for him to come back again that very same night, and then just go on this entire rampage on the Nexus week after week until they just bring him back. Man, as much as I love John Cena, he was just insufferable in 2010 because what the hell did the Nexus do to deserve this? And yeah, don't worry, a Nexus retrospective is definitely coming very soon to this channel, so stay tuned. Sometimes I get a good feeling. Hey, I actually really enjoyed the show on the rewatch. The Rock having his first match after 7 years was awesome in real time, especially for someone like me who missed his entire first run in WWE. And he looked great, but I can't lie, Punk and Del Rio definitely stole the show. But I can't lie, CM Punk and Alberto Del Rio definitely stole the show. And look, I don't really give Del Rio much credit because he bores me to tears most times, but this match was really freaking good. The crowd was hot, especially for Punk. The Howard Finkel intro and MSG was a very nice touch. And they told a really good story of Del Rio working Punk's arm, that making it hard for Punk to actually hit the GTS. And then the finish where Punk gets a near fall, but then quickly transitions it into the Anaconda Vice for the win. So well done. And hey, CM Punk's historic title reign started here, so I guess extra points for that. I will always have love for the show, not because it's anything amazing, but the fact that the Shield debuts here means a lot to me. The Shield is legit my favorite thing WWE ever did for many reasons, and their debut was so dope to me at that time. And the triple threat before it with Punk, Cena, and Ryback was actually pretty damn good. Yeah, I know, Ryback and pretty good in the same sentence sounds like an oxymoron, but trust me, even he was good here. He was booked super dominant against both the top guys back when people actually rocked with Ryback, so it worked perfectly. But this match will always be remembered for that finish, and who knew this would be the start for these 3 guys running pretty much the entire industry for the better part of a decade. Man, if you didn't realize Roman Reigns was gonna get the super push of a century before this match, you knew it after this night. This man damn near swept the entire other team in the opening 5-on-5 match and was the sole survivor. The signs are right there, folks. But this was another Survivor Series that honestly peaked in the opener. But it was a hot start to what was otherwise a really weird show. You had 4 of the best teams from around this time and also that deadbeat tearing it down. Some fun eliminations, some cool spots. But man, this was the Roman Reigns show. No question about it. Yo, I hope Dolph Ziggler got a chiropractor after this show. The carry job he did for not just his team, but this show as a whole was insane. Outside of the main event, there is nothing memorable about this show. I mean, Slater Gator versus Adam Rose and the Bunny. 2014 was a wild time, but Team Cena versus Team Authority, man. Take me back to this night. I love how this match was structured so much. With Cena and Ryback, the 2 potential Supermen, getting eliminated early, and then you had Dolph's incredible 3-1 comeback, and of course, the amazing debut of Sting. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad if someone said this was the best 5-on-5 match of all time. and they built themselves a perfect opportunity to push Dolph to the moon, but we know how that goes every time. I remember this show being kind of mid, but watching it back, it's even worse than I remember. Late 2015 was just not the best time. The roster was depleted because of so many injured top stars, including Seth Rollins, who had to relinquish the WWE title to set up this tournament. And unfortunately, it does not even sniff the deadly games. But did produce what was honestly default match of this night in the main event, with Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose fighting for the vacant title. The match was only about 9 minutes and the result was insanely obvious, but the two Shield boys had some pretty good chemistry, and I'm surprised they never really ran a full-fledged feud between them at any point. Because just going off this match, that could have worked, but who really knows? For some reason, WWE in late 2016 is legit the peak of my wrestling fandom, and this show, and especially the men's 5-on-5 Raw vs. SmackDown match, emphasizes everything I loved about this time. And I'm gonna say something that some of y'all may agree with, some of y'all may think I'm out of my mind for saying this, but in my opinion, this is the best Survivor Series 5-on-5 match of all time. Yes, this match had a fun build and a lot of star power, but it's the incredible storytelling that makes me give it that crown. There were so many different feuds that was happening around this time that were woven into this match. Things like Ambrose getting eliminated because AJ refused to help him just make me happy. Even that tiny callback with James Ellsworth being the reason Braun Strowman gets eliminated by countout, just for Ellsworth to die again. And there were so many amazing spots like Roman's spear on Shane and the mid-air RKO to eliminate Seth. This match legit just flies by. It makes you forget it's actually 52 whole minutes, and personally, I never get tired of rewatching it. Matter of fact, it's actually a tradition for me to watch this every Thanksgiving, and I can't wait to do it all over again. Yo, we are all forever indebted to AJ Styles for saving us from the monstrosity that would have been Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar. Not just because Jinder's reign was egregiously bad, but also because what we got instead was an instant classic. Brock Lesnar always worked better with smaller guys, and AJ Styles was arguably still the best wrestler in the world at this point. And this was Brock's best match he had had in a very long time. It started with the usual Brock Lesnar beatdown, but when AJ got going, things really picked up. He was working on Brock's knee for the longest, and when he actually put Brock in the calf crusher, you low-key believed it was a little bit possible. But of course, he got his head dribbled like a basketball and eventually got put away. And honestly, you could make a case for this being the best champion versus champion match of this era, but I got one more match I think is just a little bit better. I could honestly copy and paste everything I said about Styles and Lesnar for Bryan and Lesnar, but for me, there's way more to it. This was a match that we wanted for years, but there was always something in the way. It was supposed to happen at SummerSlam 2014, but Bryan got injured. We wanted it at WrestleMania 31, but then that's when WWE said fuck our feelings. And then Bryan retires, so now we think it's never happening. But then Daniel Bryan not only unretires, but he wins the WWE Championship to set up this match. And this was everything we wanted and more. Despite Bryan turning heel literally 5 days before this, they still made you feel sympathy for the guy. The fear they put in my heart every single time Brock would throw Bryan on his head. Even Paul Heyman was looking concerned for him. But then you got Bryan channeling that new heel side, hitting the low blow and then the running knee. And that insanely close kick out from Brock gets me out of my seat every single time I rewatch this match. And Brock selling when he's in the yes lock, again, really just makes you believe this is actually possible. Bryan just might do it. And obviously he doesn't, but holy shit, what a trip this match was. Top 5 all-time favorite match for me, and no doubt a Survivor Series classic. Fight so dirty, but your love so sweet. Talk so... At this time, the Raw vs. SmackDown thing was starting to become really stale, especially with Raw winning every single year. But NXT injected new life into that and actually gave us something to enjoy about main roster WWE in 2019, which is honestly another video by itself. But that 5-on-5-on-5 men's match was great. Only part I really hated about it was how they did my glorious King Walter. Like, why is he easily getting eliminated with one Claymore? Why? But that final 2 with Roman Reigns and Keith Lee was just so freaking good. The Chicago crowd was into every last second of that, and the near fall after the Spirit Bomb was a chef's kiss. Ah, man. What could have been with Keith Lee in WWE. Folks, I bring to you the most underrated match from the pandemic era, Drew McIntyre versus Roman Reigns. Roman had just rejuvenated himself with the, at the time, new Tribal Chief gimmick, and Drew had been carrying the company for almost the entire year at this point. So this was the perfect matchup for the time. And even in defeat, they made Drew look like Roman's equal. Now, it's not quite as good as their match at Clash of the Castle a couple years later, but I can guarantee you if it had a crowd, it would be remembered a lot more because this is as good as it gets without one. As weird as this show was, there was some pockets of good. Big E and Roman cooked, Rollins and Hardy were a great final two in the men's 5-on-5, but for me, Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch stole the show from the very beginning. Now, the lead up to this whole thing was weird. I mean, who remembers the whole title swap thing? I wish I didn't. But these two always delivered together, and this was one of their best matches. The intensity was super high from the very beginning. It got super physical, so many close near falls, and they told this great story like they know each other inside and out, and it only makes sense because there's so much history there. And I know they've wrestled a lot, but I wouldn't complain seeing another Becky and Charlotte match because they just never miss together.
Generals gathered in their masses.
Now we have finally reached the War Games era. And for its first year, there wasn't a single miss between both the War Games matches. But for me, the story of the main event just edges that one above the women's one in the opener. The Bloodline story was at its absolute peak, and this was just prime example of that. Everyone trying to figure out if Sammy's going to be loyal to the Bloodline when he had to face his best friend. And he goes ahead and proves his loyalty by taking his best friend down, and then Jey Uso accepting him into the family after everything they'd been through. And even the action before the drama was really freaking good. Man, peak Bloodline storytelling. Just take me back, man. Just take me back.
Generals gathered in their masses.
As fun as the ending of the night was with the men's war game, and specifically Randy Orton's return and then Pepsi Phil eventually showing back up, I can't lie, the women's war games match was slightly more enjoyable to me. They went crazy with the weapons, and of course we had our routine Io Sky trash can dive, and I feel like they were able to hook me in for the whole match. Nothing really dragged for me, especially with the story they told with Bayley trying to constantly save her damage control teammates, just for her to be the one that gets pinned in the end, adding more fuel to the fire of her eventual face turn. But hey, I can't blame you if you like the men's war games match more. I mean shit, that RKO at the end, whew, beautiful. And for our last one of the video, we got another year with another Bloodline War Games match taking the W. Now, I can't say this was as good as the one from 2022, but this was a really good storytelling match. Sammy and Jimmy patching things up, and speaking of Jimmy, he really got in his bag for this one. The constant tension between Roman and Punk was done really well. The big high spots from the top of the cage, and I really like that finish of Roman giving the chance to Solo to surrender, and the OG Bloodline all hitting their finishes on Solo to end the match. Very fun way to end 2024 in terms of pay-per-views, and shows that, once again, very few come close to Bloodline storytelling. Now please, just let it end. Please. Alright y'all, that is the best match of every Survivor Series. I hope y'all enjoyed that video. Hey, if you're still here, obviously you did, you made it to the end. Appreciate y'all for watching the whole thing. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let me know in the comments down below what you would change, what you would do, all that good stuff. But I'll see y'all in the next one. I'm out of here. I'm gone.